Hi, I'm Elizabeth Hefner from Berks Career and Technology Center, West Campus Counselor.
Hi, I'm Stacy Campbell, and I'm at the East Campus. Welcome to Career Talk Tuesday. We have today with us Mr. Galczynski. Mr. Galczynski is our cabinetry and wood technology instructor. Did I get the name of that program right?
Absolutely. Cabinetry and wood technology.
Excellent. What did I say? Cabinet making. We've had a couple different names of your program, so I've gotten lost over the past few years. Okay, so we're going to start with the easy one. Tell us about your work experience. How did you end up here?
Well, I actually worked in the construction trade of cabinetry. It's kind of like cabinetry is a specialized branch of carpentry. It's the finished end of, it's the remodeling skills, it's the finished end of institutional furniture, things that go into like hotels and restaurants and schools, that type of cabinetry. So I got started in the trade and worked in the trade actually 18 years prior to teaching. So in a few different areas, anything from kitchens and baths to contemporary furniture I worked on, and countertops, strictly countertops, worked for a countertop company. So 18 years in the trade. And, I went through periods of time where with the economy, changes with the economy as often as that happens, the ebbs and flows of the trade area. And I got laid off at times, and then your family comes along. I had children, so just sitting around work one day with the guys, and I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I think I want to do something a little bit different. But I want to stay within the trade area. And one of the guys said to me, well, you've been a trainer with with a couple of places you worked at. Have you ever considered teaching? And that's when the light bulb went off, and it was just one day sitting around at break time, out on the job in the parking lot, sitting around having coffee, and somebody said, "Have you ever considered teaching?" And then there at about the same time, I personally went to the Career Center at Reading. I grew up and born and raised in Reading, and I went to Reading Muhlenberg's Career Center, and I run into my teacher, my previous instructor at Reading, and he was retiring at the time, and he said to me, so the ducks were, the stars were aligned, and whatever you want to say, but that's kind of how the idea popped into my head, and I applied for teaching initially at Reading, and I was not accepted there, and then the director there, or 3 years later, the same job for cabinet, at the time it was cabinet making, came up at Lehigh. So I actually started at Lehigh Career and Technical, and the director at Reading had called the director up at Lehigh and said, "You got a guy coming up there that we wanted to hire," but I had no college courses at the time. I was only straight out of the trade, so I wasn't prepared. I didn't begin any coursework, so and Reading couldn't hire me. But I had, in the interim then, between Reading's application and Lehigh, I had started courses, college courses for teaching. So when I applied there, I got the job at Lehigh. So I spent 10 years teaching at Lehigh, and now I'm here at BCTC. I believe it's 12 or 13 more years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Can I go back? How many jobs did you have when you were in the field? Because it sounds like you had, how many different companies did you work for?
I believe it was 4 total, 4 or 5, 4.
Okay.
4 companies within the trade.
Is that typical for somebody who goes into this field?
It is. I always tell the students, I say, if employers are looking for experience, and I say, when you leave BCTC, you really don't have experience. I tell the students, you have skills. You've learned the skills of the trade, but you're going to be trained within the company that hires you. And tell them, if you're there at that company and they put you in the position, let's say in production or something like that, and you're pigeonholed and streamlined into only one spot within that company, don't be afraid to move on. Now you've gained some experience. So that's what happens in the trade a lot of times. I wouldn't call it turnover, but guys want to leave because they just don't like the job anymore. So they want to go find another employer and go someplace else. Or they're recruited by another employer. They hear about you and what your work ethic looks like, the type of work you do, and how good you are at your job. So you start to be recruited, because it's almost like a small community, where employers get to know employees and vice versa, and you get to know people, so you talk, and other job offers come along.
So I have a question with that. Sorry, Ms. Campbell.
No, I'll go after you.
Okay, so two things. I hear don't burn bridges in that field, because everybody pretty much knows everybody, even if it's
Absolutely.
like at a distance. Pretty much people know kind of your name and your work ethic. But then my second part is just a question of what are employers looking for when they're looking to hire somebody in your field? What are the main kind of things that they're looking for?
Well, anytime we talk to our co-op employers or our advisory committee employers here, the first thing that they want to hear is, does the kid show up every day to school? Is attendance? And the second thing they ask is, what is their attitude like? Are they willing to learn and capable of being trained? And then the third and fourth thing are, well, what are the skills that they learned? And, kids think while they're here, oh my gosh, I have to learn everything. I have to know how to do it all. And they're so afraid to go out and try to get a job in the trade. And I say to them, don't worry about it. They will train you for what they'd like you to do when you get, when you start that first day. You're going to be trained. You're going to have that on-the-job training. Don't be so concerned about, and that fear, don't have that fear about getting yourself a job. So, yeah, a baseline of skills, obviously, going in, or some sort of background. But that's what employers are looking for. That work ethic. The work ethic is important.
Okay.
So my follow-up then, actually, this does kind of dovetail in. So it sounds to me like when you get hired for a position, they do have like a kind of a specific job that they want you to do. For instance, you were doing countertops, and when you were doing furniture, you were doing furniture. So it sounds like when you get hired, and you can correct me if I've got this wrong, that the student comes in and they learn how to do specifically what that company wants them to do. And so when a person moves on, it's really because they're ready to do something different. Are there any jobs in your field that are more creative, or where you might be doing a variety of work? Like if somebody was like, I don't want to make countertops, every day, like I'm okay doing that for a couple of years, but then at some point I want to have a little variety in my day, what would that job look like?
Well, over time within these companies and these trades, this trade, I've seen a change. I've seen that change. Back when I started and I worked in the trade, it was kind of like you were stuck in a spot of production. But now with technology, and these companies are doing larger volumes of product and getting things out, and they have multiple departments within the companies. So they tend to want to move people around now. When I started and I worked in the trade, it was not that way. They had, a department that would, let's say put hardware on cabinetry, or a department for finishing, spraying finishes and staining and spraying. And you worked in a department, okay, and you would put in maybe for a job in a different department, but a lot of times it was locked up by the people who just loved to be there and didn't want to leave it. So that's why you would be tempted to move on to another company. But now they really want these new employees and our students to be diversified within the company, be able to move around. And be trained in different areas, because they don't want to lose people where they used to lose people with the old way and the old way of doing things. So now I'm amazed. When I started, in the trade, we were happy from the Career Center as high school students when we graduated. We were happy to get a job at a cabinet shop and be staining or be sanding doors or something. Now these companies are calling for our kids and asking them, well, what's his knowledge about the CNC technology, or how is he with installations of kitchens? Wow. Like, you're kidding me. It took me 8-10 years to get to the installation department. I never touched a CNC machine while I was in the trade, and they want these kids to learn and know this stuff today.
Wow.
You know, so than ever before.
That's neat. I mean, would you say, well, it sounds like you need to be really, really detail oriented in a program like yours. So when you are doing projects, if you are in a certain role that the company's allowing you to learn, you want to make sure to be really detail oriented and not just kind of get the job done, or else you won't be able to move probably around the company to be able to do that. So how would somebody, if they're looking to apply to a role, maybe their resume should look like, or how they present themselves? Because if they need to be detail oriented on the job, should that transfer into when they're applying to a job and talking to an employer?
Well, I think, you know, when a student goes in, they should definitely have a resume prepared, and possibly even some sort of portfolio of projects they built or things that they've done. But their skill set should definitely probably be listed, you know, on their resume as personal skills, or, you know, some sort of area within a resume that mentions those skills that they have background knowledge of. Definitely.
Jerry, can I ask you, what would be an example, like if you were going to help a student highlight some of their skills? Because honestly, when you say skills, I'm thinking as a counselor, I would put good listener and good at conflict resolution. But your students, what would your students put down on their resume? Like, what would that look like?
Well, usually if I'm helping a student with a resume from this program, I'll say to them, just generally put it into categories of, you know, hand tool skills, power tool skills. Don't list individual tools, or a hand tool, a hammer and a screwdriver. Don't list individual tools, but just a general category of, you know, hand tool knowledge, hand tool skills, power tool skills, machinery skills. And then, you know, if you want to highlight one, you can highlight a specialty or something, but just general skills learned like that fall into categories.
Is it typical to have a portfolio to share with an employer? Is that usually something that people do to be able to get a job in your field?
Not too much. Actually, I encourage it since I became a teacher, because when I was in a trade, and typically, no, an applicant does not typically go into an employer with a portfolio. But if you have something like that, if you have even just a couple of photos to show the interviewer or the job site, the foreman in the company on the floor, production manager, somebody like, if you just have something to show, a little something, it goes a long way.
Nice.
Even if it's a deck that you helped your father build at your house or something, to showcase those skills in some way. It's not a formal full-blown portfolio, but have something like that. That goes a long way in conversation, you know, at an interview.
That's great. Well, kind of rounding up our conversation here, you know, I mean, I really appreciate all the things that you've been talking about, and I think they're going to be really helpful for our students learning what would be kind of a good way to apply and how to be able to work in your field. Do you have any kind of words of advice as you think about kind of your path and how you got to where you are? Any just final words of advice for somebody?
I would just say have that the attitude that I'm willing to learn. Not that I know everything, and I'm gonna, you know, go to a company and think that I know it all because I've done this before, I've done this type of skill. Have an open mind to learning, have the right attitude, show up for work every day with the right the right work ethic, and the right attitude. And I would say do a little bit of research. You know, if you're going to apply for a company, try to find out who the contact is, who owns the company, how long they've been in business. Try to do a little bit of research and find out about the company, or talk to someone that you know that has worked there, or try to get in contact with someone who has worked there to find out what the environment's like and the conditions, and see what the company's all about. So you go there, you know, no matter who you talk to, whether it's a formal interview or an informal interview, be a little bit prepared.
Nice.
And present yourself well, you know, and be confident. I say to a lot of my students here, you know, by the time they're at high school, it seems like I said before earlier, they're afraid to go out, apply, and interview, and try to get themselves a job. And I say to them, let's work on one thing. If you work on one thing while you're here, is grow some confidence. You know, go in confident about yourself and what you're willing to do for that company, and let that employer know, even if you don't have a complete skill set, I am here to work. I am willing to learn.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's something that we've heard from other instructors as well, is just building your confidence and being able to tell employers, these are my skills and this is why you want to hire me. Practicing that over and over and over again while you're here, to be able to say that to an employer can be really helpful. Well, you know what? We really appreciate your time and your insight. This is really great. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope those of you watching, I hope you enjoyed our Career Talk Tuesday for this week, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.